Partnered by Times Influence.
The UN believes gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous and sustainable world. Owing to the state of gender equality world over, the UN has created the Sustainable Development Goal 5. The idea is to focus around women emerging as equal stakeholders in the development model, and achieving gender equality is imperative to indicate progress towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
As you know, in 2015, United Nations signed agreement with 193 countries globally, what we call it Paris Agreement on Sustainable Development Goals. And among the 17 sustainable goals, the gender equality is one of the prime goals. And for India, it is one of the key goals if you have to really bridge the gender diversity gap, which is so huge. And if we have to really take India to the next level of the growth, it is a very important goal to make a difference here.
So I think it's a very important platform because it brings industry, government, not-for-profits and aid agencies on the same platform, and everybody has their role to play. While government has their role in implementing programs and schemes for women and adolescent girls, there's always a last mile gap. There's only so much that government can do, and that is where corporate India and not-for-profit agencies help in driving the implementation and the funding to reach a wider set of stakeholders in rural India and even the urban poor.
Recognizing the philosophy on gender equality, the first edition of UN GCNI Gender Equality Summit was held recently in the national capital. The event resonates the global commitment towards developing a strong India roadmap towards gender equality. The summit aimed to provide a national platform to discuss the collective responsibility and exploring pathways towards gender-inclusive outcomes with its theme of the summit, Gender Equality, a Key Differentiator for Sustainable Growth.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Global Compact, which was initially focused on the 10 principles covering human rights, labor, environment and anti-corruption, has after 2015 started its focus on SDGs in a big way. In fact, the UN Global Compact mission now is global goals, local business. The Global Compact Network in India, apart from organizing the various events related to these goals and creating awareness, is also focusing on capacity building. There's really capacity building programs covering different aspects of these goals and how the businesses and the companies can pursue them. So this is expected to be a fairly important activity in the coming years, and a separate center has been set up for this one. A resource center has been set up, and I'm sure that the companies will take advantage of these activities. And I'm sure during the discussions, many new ideas will emerge, many suggestions will come, many recommendations will come, and that will be something for us to follow up and then to implement. Thank you.
And to give an overview of the summit, I would like to invite Ms. Vaishali Sinha, Chair GES 2018 and Director Renew Power.
On behalf of the United Nations Global Compact Network, I'd like to welcome all of you here today. It's really a great occasion here today. We are holding the first ever Gender Equality Summit in India. It's the beginning of a very successful chapter in the area of gender equality and empowerment. India's economic surge may have been lauded globally, but the extent of its women's progress is not really up to the mark. If I could take the liberty of stating that, I think there is much to be done. Sliding from 87 to 108, the nation has experienced a sharp decline in its overall global gender gap index ranking of the World Economic Forum, especially in the political empowerment, along with healthy life expectancy and basic literacy areas. While things for women are improving on various fronts, I think we've never had the kind of attention we are seeing on this topic in the past, but there are significant issues that still remain. For instance, the global gender pay gap is 23%, rising to an abysmal 40% in rural India. Most women are unrecognized for the unpaid work that they do every day. Women's representation in parliament stands on an average at less than a quarter, and in the boardrooms, it's even lower. So it's not a great story. It's getting better, but much needs to be done. At each level, efforts have to be made to increase the participation of women. This needs to also be monitored effectively. For us to achieve the targets of SDG 5, which is gender equality, an effective monitoring system has to be in place to ensure corrective measures are taken during shortfalls. And let's move ahead in our journey towards greater parity and more empowerment of women. Thank you.
Gender inequality has a long-standing history of being entrenched in various aspects of Indian society. The GES Summit hopes to facilitate a national platform to create a discourse for our collective responsibility towards gender equality and explore avenues for gender-inclusive outcomes. To set the context for the summit, I would now invite Mr. N. Venkatram, Managing Partner and CEO, Deloitte India.
At the outset, let me tell you that Deloitte is honored to support as the knowledge partner for today's summit. Globally as well, the gender focus resonates well within our organization, and some of you may be aware that our global CEO, Puneet Ranjan, is of Indian descent, and recently he did announce that one of his goals is to invest in creating 50 million futures through an initiative that we call a world-class initiative, which has a budget, I think, of about 250 million over a period to create skill development, livelihoods, and capacity building opportunities, largely for women and adolescent girls. We are participating in the summit because of our awareness that platforms such as this go a long way in terms of facilitating dialogues and partnerships, and are very grateful for those of you on the dais as well as those of you who attend to ensure that we do debate and deliberate on this critical area on our agenda. We hope the deliberations and dialogues in this conference every success and look forward to you having a very productive day. Thank you.
A galaxy of eminent speakers from India and abroad graced the occasion. The event was attended by more than 250 business leaders across India who expressed their valued opinion on the topic of India Roadmap to Achieving SDGs through Gender Equality.
Greetings from the United Nations headquarters in New York. My warm thanks go to Kamal Singh and Global Compact Network in India for organizing the first ever Gender Equality Summit in India. Thank you also to all of you in attendance for showing your active support to women's empowerment and equal opportunities. We really need your support. You see, Sustainable Development Goal 5 on gender equality is one of the goals where we are not moving forward at the pace and scale we need. In some areas, we are actually moving backwards. Think about it. Women are 1/2 of the world's population, and yet we undervalue and underutilize half of the world's total talent pool. This seriously hampers our ability to drive sustainable economic growth. Not only is that a grave injustice and violation of basic human rights, it's bad for business. Indeed, if women were able to fully participate in the formal economy, we could add $28 trillion to the global GDP. That's why we need responsible businesses in India to take the lead on closing the gender gap and help put a stop to the physical and sexual abuse of women. Women are key to sustainable economic development. So let's go to work Thank you again. I wish you a very productive meeting.
In the Indian context, Prime Minister Modi has expressed a deep commitment towards SDGs 5, gender equality, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Yojana, reaching country-specific SDG targets, mandating the Niti Aayog as the nodal agency responsible for planning, implementation and monitoring outcomes.
The Niti Aayog, along with the government, has embarked on several initiatives to promote this and to ensure on several aspects. So one is, how do you build the awareness? Second is, what do you do in terms of education, the girl education? Third is, how do you enable schools and universities to make the students more empowered? Fourth is the empowerment itself in terms of policy making and policy interventions. And the fifth is, how do you build an entrepreneurship ecosystem which will promote women? So in all of these, the Niti Aayog is playing a very important role.
The male to female sex ratio in India is very skewed. And that shows the thought process of the rural India to the urban India. The Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao, the campaigns like such, has encouraged a lot of people from the rural India to give birth to a baby girl.
For a special address, I would like to invite Ms. Nishtha Satyam, Deputy Representative, UN Women MCO for India, Bhutan, Maldives and Sri Lanka.
Dignitaries on the dais, friends and family. As far as the business sector goes, I think there has been great recognition of the role that women can play in enhancing performance, in bringing a culture that ensures the workplace is a more diverse place, is a place of work, is an appreciated place of work. And it is often very well highlighted in the mission statements and the policies of businesses that have attested in the recent past. I'm also very well aware that every single corporate at this point in time is trying some sort of an effort to ensure that it is a more equitable workplace to be. Some of us have flexible policies, some of us have policies to bring women back after maternities. What essentially has been difficult to change is the unsaid soft organizational culture. When women avail some of these things that are absolutely their rights, they do come back to the organization almost feeling that they have taken a favor from an organization for having to go through a life event. And I think that's where we really need to match what is on policy, what is on paper, what is on intent, and the way it is displayed in organizations. It's a great thing that we have started talking about gender. It's a great thing that there are summits, there are conferences, there are ads. There are so many people, so many actors in the universe that are coming together for the first time in history to talk about gender as a mainstream issue. It is our responsibility to push the envelope and ensure that this converts into real action. Thank you so much.
And now to launch the Best Practices Compendium. Deloitte has compiled a Best Practices Compendium on gender equality, which highlights solutions to address developmental challenges for women in the areas of economic empowerment, financial inclusion, health and nutrition, menstrual hygiene, domestic violence, etc.
One of the main highlights of the event was recognizing the best practices. A best case study competition was organized where 30 top-notch companies participated and showcased their best practices. Out of these, 5 companies were selected for the award. Best Practice Award for Innovative Initiatives in Ensuring Women Empowerment, Tata Communications was the winner. For exceptional initiatives in the MSME segment, the honor was given to Kariwala Industries. The second runner-up for the Best Practice Award was Wipro. The honor was also given to Mahindra & Mahindra as the first runner-up. And the winner of the Best Practices Award was given to Shell India Markets Private Limited. The first plenary session, My Journey, highlights gender issues prevalent in our society and how some of the brave women broke all shackles and became a source of inspiration for all of us.
So I came in with absolutely a blank slate to learn and imbibe and hear stories, and I heard many. Some of them are heart-touching, some of them are absolutely so number-driven that you get that sense of seriousness in the work that people do. So my journey throughout today has been to imbibe and to be a sponge actually. And then for my session, of course, I wanted to share my journey, what my learnings were from on the road, so that people around who probably have looked at a certain problem in a particular direction only could think about it differently. The perspective that we bring on the table from on the ground, because we are really touching the communities in the villages where probably even government access is something that is not present till now. So that is something that I feel happy about, that those voices were heard today by the audience.
I congratulate the organizers to host this Gender Equality Summit, which is happening first time in India, a fantastic summit. And I'm really excited that today is the time where we are looking for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but here we are seeing that there is so much excitement about women and entrepreneurship. We had panels where corporate world and the grassroots organizations are coming together and are not only just talking about leading the program and investing, but also talking about the real impact. So that is actually a special about it. And Mandeshi is actually looking for impacting 1 million women entrepreneurs by 2020. And I see that, this summit can also help us to meet that and take our women to that journey.
The next plenary session was based on the theme of transition to policy development. Collecting gender-specific data as evidence base for policy advocacy, the session talked about higher women participation in all spheres from the boardroom and corporate offices to the political arena, developing an India-centric issue and policy platform.
Let me first try and understand from you if there is data and statistics to show. For instance, let's start by talking about one policy, which is getting more independent women on the boards. Now, is that a policy that is something that we see has been successful, not just in letter, but also in spirit?
SEBI, the regulator for capital markets, mandated in 2014 that there has to be at least a minimum of one woman director on every board. But if we look across the globe, there have been various countries who have adopted the mandating model.
Right.
Because clearly it would appear that the process of natural selection has not worked for whatever reason. And the women are actually demonstrating that they're adding serious value.
Yeah.
There is some amount of research which says where market value is concerned, corporates having good women representation on the board, having good women representation in their senior management and middle-level management have performed better or have demonstrated better market value vis-a-vis others.
Let me bring you in, Gayatri, to talk about what is the gap and why is it that we're not seeing some of these policies being successfully implemented in the corporate workplace?
To me, the way we engage in this conversation is very critical. What is necessary when government mandates something is to engage the multi-stakeholders. So if the government is looking at a policy of, say, the maternity leave of 26 weeks, how does that impact corporates? I can tell you the short-term impact of what's happened. Many program managers who make the decisions to hire women at technical and make the decisions on technical capabilities now step back and say, okay, she's married. Now she's potentially going to, she's biologically active, so she's potentially going to have a child. In 6 months, she's not going to be around. Should I hire her? Versus this guy who on an average is 8 to 12% more expensive than her, but I know he's not going to take 8 months off. Is he a better bet? Now, obviously, this is not going to be an open conversation, and HR, I am part of that, is not going to know. But these decisions are silently made. So there are silent blocks. So if you want to break into that, and if you want mindsets to come and align with you, you'll have to have conversations about these change. You can't mandate something, step back and say, now let me see what's happening. It's not going to really give you what you want.
That's a very valid point, but just to be the devil's advocate here, I think the government does a fair bit of stakeholder consultation when they go ahead and announce a policy.
I just come to the policy, new policy. This is a draft policy of women, which has been given to the group of ministers, which they have approved. Now we have to go to the cabinet. I just pinpoint the priority areas of this policy. These are, I'm just giving, these are health, including food security and nutrition, education, economy, including agriculture, industry, labor, employment, NRI women, soft power, service sector, science and technology, governance and decision making, violence against women, enabling environment, including housing, shelter, infrastructure, drinking water and sanitation, media and culture, sports and social security, and environment and climate change. This policy actually, if it is implemented properly, it's going to strengthen the gender as a whole, and it will try to improve the situation where we are now with respect to the gender inequality.
Neha, if you could talk about Internet Sathi as an initiative.
The Internet Sathi is actually a partnership between Google and Tata Trust. And Tata Trust has been very key for this initiative because really they have been working in rural India for decades and they bring the expertise which Google did not have. But at the same time, we do need other partners to take. So we have been working with state rural livelihood missions in various states that we're present in to actually identify who are the right women. So most of our Sathis are from self-help groups, or they are part of an NGO. We have a whole set of NGO partners who are helping us implement and monitor this on ground.
It's been a very, very interesting discussion on a topic that requires a lot of in-depth thinking, planning. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience here, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing their insights. Thank you.
This being the first summit, we are very hopeful that there will be a lot of focus and attention brought to things you could do to actually improve the gender parity in India.
We've done well in the policies and the inclusion at workplace, and we can see the numbers going up and improving. However, inclusion with the communities, the bill was passed only in 2014 and 2015 where people started to implement the CSR 2%. Now that work still has to be made more scalable and sustainable. Why? Because we measure the input and the output, but we need to also measure the impact and co-create the solutions with the community.
The gala event was culminated on a note that was positive and energizing, motivating each of us to contribute and be enablers of this very social change. The closing note by Kamal Singh, Executive Director, UN Global Compact Network India, resonated with that thought.
The important key takeaway of the summit is to basically understand that what the gap that exists in gender equality and what are the opportunities to bridge the gaps. How can we align all the stakeholders and bring them together on achievement of these SDGs, especially the gender equality, and also prepare a blueprint going forward that how each and every organization can themselves commit and also present their roadmap for pursuing the gender equality goal in India.
Partnered by Times Influence.